All right, what is going on, everyone? And welcome back to more Black Desert. My name is John, and today we're going to be talking about our node and worker setup. Now, I know a lot of people are probably confused about this, especially anyone who has joined the game within the past month. And the reason why we're talking about it is because I want you to get it all set up early on. That is one of the huge mistakes that people don't do, because it is just passive income. Basically, your workers go on a node, they bring back materials to your storage, and that's just free money over time. So that's one thing I want to make sure that everyone can get started. Now, I will say, what I'm going to show you, feel free to do whatever you want, take that information. I wouldn't recommend necessarily copying what I do, just because the materials that I get are actually things I use, and I would recommend people to pick up things that they are going to actually use themselves. And the things I will try to help you guys with is, if you are a beginner, obviously you aren't going to have as many contribution points, and I'll try to point out some notable nodes that I think are worth something, whether you are just selling the materials straight up to the market or actually using them for various life skills like cooking, alchemy, and whatever. So I'll try to make this as easy as I can, and especially for consoles, because I know you console players don't have the exact same things we do. Like, I think from what I've been told, you don't even have the new region or one of the regions yet. So anyway, let's do a quick startup on what are they, what are nodes, how to get the workers. So first of all, if you look at everything on the map here, I think this might actually be easier to show you. So these things on the maps are nodes, and the things that have a yellow circle on it with a timer is your workers. They are bringing back various things that which you can see, and then they'll bring it back to your storage. And that's a very basic concept. So how do you get those workers? In every town, there's an NPC that is like a work supervisor, and basically you can hire or contract workers or buy them from like other players, I believe. And ideally, they go into the same route as like gear in terms of white quality, green, blue, yellow, and then orange. Orange being the best, white being the lowest tier. And so you basically pay energy, and then you keep re-rolling a worker until you get the best one. There are three types of workers, essentially: goblins, humans, and giants. Goblins are the fast ones. Like, they can, let's say you put your worker on a node, right? And a goblin will take 1 hour to bring back all the materials back and forth. But they bring less of it. And then a human worker will probably take like 1 hour and 10 minutes, but then they'll bring it slightly more. And then the giants, let's say they are the longest or the slowest, which is 1.5 hours, but they'll bring back the most. So I think overall the meta for like workers, I don't think many people actually min-max the workers these days. Generally, I think goblins are the best. If you can get humans too, that's fine. But anyway, that's how we get it. That's just the basics of workers and nodes. How do you get it? So, okay. Let's go over every region of what I have and what I think are important. So let's start off with the Balenos region, which is Velia and Olvia, just because these are the two starter areas. So like, let's say you're starting off the game for the first time and you start at Western Guard Camp. I do believe that some notable nodes within the area are things that you can use to boost your CP or your contribution points early on. So I guess one more thing I forgot to mention is what does it cost? So you look over here, you'll see this points called contribution, and there's a total out of a number. So I have 428 as a total contribution pool, and the number on the left is how many you have remaining. So ideally, the number on the left is supposed to be as close to 0 as possible, because you're using all your nodes. If you have contribution just left over, that means you just have things not being used, and that could be turned into money. So make sure to use as much as you can. So once again, in the Velia region, things I think are important are chicken meat, eggs, and various things where you can craft like food for your workers, because you do have to actually feed them over time to have them keep going and everything. So these are important nodes. And by cooking, you get byproducts that you can turn into contribution points. So passively, you just get more contribution, meaning more workers, more money. And so it's like a few step process, but essentially it is overall helpful. And other things I would recommend putting into are timbers, which are like logs for trees, saps, which are very important for alchemy. And you may not think you need saps now, but you could just sell them on the market. Otherwise, if you do alchemy, it's more of an end game thing, in my opinion. Well, not even end game, just like mid-tier end game. And trust me, there will be a lot of bottlenecks. And so if you have them now early on, I think they're important. Otherwise, just pick up whatever you think you need. And of course, ores and various other things. I think iron ore is generally probably one of the most used ores in the game as a general whole for just random stuff in the entire game. So over here we have, of course, the chicken meat and eggs thing that's very important, cooking, high value. And then there's another set right here that we have for that, and I think those are the more relevant ones, especially for beginners. And then over here we have like ores and timbers. I think those are also high value if you're just selling it to the market, but if you know how to use those crafts, it's important. So one thing I want to show you guys, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in the video, so let's explain this now. If you're doing timbers, let's talk about like tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. I'll just try to break it down as easy as possible. So timbers are tier 1 materials. This is the one you get from gathering, or the ones you get from nodes. Very easy, right? So you can see how the market price says 23.40. Now, if you're trying to maximize your profit, you want to turn them into tier 2 and tier 3 nodes, and then either you use them or you sell them. So next thing we have is you turn timbers by processing into planks, which we'll call tier 2 nodes, and then so basically turn that into that. And then you turn the planks into plywoods, which is what we'll call tier 3 node, or tier 3 materials. And so once you have it at the max, in theory, at the higher masteries and like just the higher levels in general, it is slightly more profitable than just selling the tier 1 materials to the market. So that's how you can profit more or less. Is it really worth doing? I mean, like over time, it just adds up and it's just free money you probably forgot you had. So I think that's good. And then saps are for alchemy. A lot of saps will be a bottleneck, so just keep that in mind for alchemy. I remember doing a Guru 1 alchemy push, and that took so long. And so yeah, just keep your saps and stuff. You might not think you need it now, but you probably will need it eventually. And yeah, I think that's the relevant stuff that we'll talk about in the Velia and I guess Balenos region. So Heidel is the Serendia region, which is all of this over here. I think the relevant ones that you should get are excavation nodes. So excavation nodes are the ones with the shovel on the screen, and basically they give traces, and those are used for alchemy. And once again, kind of like saps, you may not think you need it now, but you probably will later. Or you could just sell it on the market. Traces are generally high value just because a lot of people do alchemy for endgame elixir crafting, which is like high-end grinding and everything. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. Other than that, Heidel or Serendia has a lot of trees, as you guys may imagine, and this is a lot of timbers and ores in the area. So I think that's something you should pick up. So you can also have like wheat and flax and all that stuff, which I have actually had going for many years. And sometimes I use it. Right here, I have almost like 400,000 of them, and I actually use them. So just over time, you get a lot, and I think it's pretty good. But other than that, you guys can see there's a lot of timber nodes, and right here in the Glish ruins is another excavation one. Trace of Origin is a very useful trace for alchemy, potions, and elixirs. So that's definitely something worth getting. Another notable one over here would be cooking honey. And this one is, well, just cooking honey. You use it to cook. And it's very hard to get that one. Well, not hard, but like There aren't too many nodes for cooking honey in general, so you either buy them off the market or you have like the very few nodes that give them, and it's probably good to pick up. So next we're going to go into the Calpheon region, because this is, I guess, we're going in the order of progression in terms of story. So like if you're a new player, chances are after Heidel, you're probably going to be in the Calpheon area. So I guess this is more limiting to... if you are a new player, you probably have a lot less CP, so these are the areas in each region I think are worth it. So over here, there's a lot of birch timbers and more like ores and more timbers, a lot of that over here. And over the years, I've actually had over 1 million birch timber here, and I've actually just over time just straight up processed it all. And then there's a lot of tin ores and stuff, so... yeah, as you guys can see, I have a lot of materials. I'm also Guru 36 in processing, because that's where it all goes, and then I use them. So I used to have a lot more nodes over here, but I think the relevant ones that I still have in are like timbers, because you can either sell them for a lot or use them. And I guess we'll talk about the Port Epheria one. So a little bit of a story of why I have these nodes is back in the day when I played, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, you would have pet food, right? And it was very hard to get pet food off the market or just buying them. So chances are, if you had it, you had to make the food yourself, and that's why we have them. So I had these nodes going on, and just over the years, I have like literally hundreds of thousands of fish just going on, and we had to use those to make all the pet food and to feed your pets and everything. Nowadays it's more of like a storage for my boating stuff and sailing and bartering, so that's another video itself. But anyway, these nodes are cheap, however they take a long time to finish the cycle, even with goblin workers. So I guess like you just get the dried fish over time, and then you use it. Otherwise, if you don't think you need it, just don't get these. Okay, so Keplin, we have just straight up one node, and that's a coal node. And coal is kind of like a important resource that I just don't have enough CP to get more of them, but the ones I do get are very important. So yeah, we have coal nodes, and there's more coal nodes down here, but again, don't have enough contribution for it. In the Trent area, going further down, I have, let's see, timbers, and look at what's funny. This node has gathered over 650,000 cedar timbers over the years, and mostly I wanted it because I wanted the saps, because I used a lot for alchemy along with the spirit leaves and everything. But just over time, we picked up a lot of timbers, which I think are actually like the higher tier ones, and I think that's a good one to pick up. And then over here, I have this connected from Bear. Like we had cedar timber and cedar sap. That's why I have that one. And we have things connected to the Marie Cave. And what we have down here is mushrooms and more pine sap. So once again, this is because I chose saps for alchemy, but I don't think this is like a high priority node for newer players. It's just one of those things that I use for myself, and it's an expensive connection, kind of. All right, so after Calpheon, it's probably the Medaya area, but let's actually go down to the Kamasylvia just because we're right here, and then we'll talk about the other areas later. So from Grana, I have all the way connected up to Loopy Tree Forest. And what are the relevant ones over here? I personally had Tooth Fairy Forest for multiple reasons. One, if you are planning on grinding infinite potions in the future, obviously the nodes give you drop rate as long as you level them up. So I had mine maxed out back in the day just because I thought the item drop rate was a thing. And it is more or less. Do you feel it? Not really, but I mean, in theory, it works. And so what do I have here? An excavation node for Trace of Forest, and this is it's a pretty good one for, I believe you use it for the cups, which is like upgrading your accessories to have the like glow effect with more stats on it. And so Trace of Forest is for the necklace version. Loopy Tree Forest over here, I have it for the saps and timbers. So going down, looking into the nodes, I have, like, I guess hundreds of thousands of timber, and I use the sap every now and then. So definitely something to think of. I don't think these are new player friendly nodes. It's just kind of something that's very specific because I needed it, but just good to know, I guess. Going down from Old Wisdom Tree, we have Thornwood Forest connected, and the reason why is because it gives Thornwood sap, which is actually kind of difficult to get. So having a node just generate Thornwood sap early on is pretty good, and I actually do use them. So that's about it. Going from Odraxia, here is some of the ones I have connected. To start off with over here. So remember how we talked about chicken meat and eggs? Yeah, I have another one over here. And then another connection for Thornwood sap. So as you guys can see, there's been a trend in all my nodes. A lot of timbers, ores, and saps, mostly for like contribution building and everything. So I think that's important in my eyes. And this one right here is just a grape or a potato one. Do I really need it? Not really. I might swap it out, but like potatoes are used for cooking, easy stuff, and I think that's pretty good. So next we have Olin's Valley. So this one's a very specific one, and I'm not really 100% sure if I even think it's worth, but Mithril is a very difficult node to get, and so over the time I have 100 Mithril, and that's actually been like a long time. It doesn't give a lot of them. So that's why if you see it on the market, like Mithril, you're just like, oh, wow, it's permanently sold out. Why? And there's like tens of thousands of orders. It's because it's used for a lot of things, but they don't give a lot of them, which is kind of annoying. So it's kind of one of those things you kind of have to craft yourself or get it yourself. So that's why I have the node on. But most people probably won't use it, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so down in the Duvencrune area, we were just over here. Let's go down into Duvencrune. Basically what we have is a Trace of Memory node, excavation. Trace of Memory is a very valuable trace because it makes the important elixirs, and they're not as easy to come by as they are before. So like if we look at traces on the market, as you can see, most of the traces you can just, for the most part, buy. The ones that have 0 in stock are the valuable ones, more or less. And Trace of Memory is one of those that has like tens of thousands of orders. Very difficult to get. That's why we have it on the market, or have a node going on for that. And I think it is probably worth noting that there are a few more like down here, or like Shurikens and everything up to Garmoth, that I think are probably have some decent value. But for me personally, these are the only ones I need. Okay, so going down into the Mountain of Eternal Winter, I'm not even sure if console has this, but if you do, it's only a few nodes anyway. So from Eilton, here's the 3 nodes that I have. The Highlands, the reason why we have that is cooking honey, and I don't know if Trace of Death is super important, but I don't need it. But once again, cooking honey, as we talked about before, very few nodes have them, so I think it is worth getting. Birch timber is timber. Do I think I need it? It might be helpful one day. And then the 2 most important ones are the Jade Starlight Forest, because in this area, you're here for multiple things. 1, you could probably get the node leveled up for the item drop rate. So if you're grinding for your Labresca helmet, this is the place to be, the Jade Starlight Forest. And of course, the nodes where we have Rough Jade and Snowfield Cedar Timber and Sap, which I think are very important. So I actually use the Sap quite often, but then the Timbers and stuff, it's just good to collect. And the Rough Jade, it sells for a lot on the market, but it's one of those things that if you have it, it's kind of worth looking into how to use them, because let's just say it's profitable. That's why it's expensive. So yeah, that's everything from like this half. Now let's go to the upper right half of nodes. So this is what we'll say, if you look on the map, this is basically Tarif and Altinova. And over here in Tarif, we have a lot of timbers, saps, and I think like potatoes and more cooking nodes in general. So there's mushrooms over here. So if you do alchemy as well, it's probably worth looking into. So everything connected to Tarif is probably from this line over here. This line of 5 nodes, everything goes to Tarif, and then everything on the right of that goes to Altinova. I believe that's how I have it connected. So cotton, wool, cinnamon, and stuff is for cooking. I don't use it as much as I used to, but they are like pretty high up there, and like it's not a useless node. You can just sell them on the market for more silver, which I think is good. Zinc is definitely an expensive one, but it's also one of those where if you know how to turn it into profit, I would recommend doing that. More cotton, flax, and mushrooms over here. And this one is an important one because it gives a Trace of Earth, and Trace of Earth was when we looked at the traces, one of the ones that is basically sold out permanently, so it's hard to get them, and if you know how to get them, this is how. That's one of them. More zinc on here, which I do need, and everything up onto the top connections are saps. However, up here is I think like 3 CP per node plus all the connections on the side, so it is kind of expensive. But if you do need saps and you do alchemy a lot, then I think it's worth it. But if you don't, I would use them in other spots. Okay, so let's go to Altinova. We have a node connected down here for zinc and iron. We talked about those earlier, how I think they're important and just useful overall. And then over here we have elder tree timber and saps going on. Want to see something funny? In terms of elder tree timber, I think we have like 1.7 million, if I'm reading this correctly, elder tree timber. Yeah, this node has been going on for probably like 5 years or something. And yeah, I've just been super lazy to process them. They kind of give a lot for some reason, but I just want to see the big number go higher. And so we have like 1.7 million of them. And yeah, maybe next year we'll hit the 2 million mark. But overall, I do believe that the important nodes to get for Altinova are probably the ones that give zinc, iron, and maybe black rough crystals if you can get it along the side, but that's really about it. As for everything else, in Arehaza, down in the Valencia region, we have vanadium and titanium ores going off. This is one of the nodes that I would recommend probably skipping for most people. If the reason why anyone would have these nodes connected is because you're using them. So vanadium over here, and I think I might have taken off the titanium one. Yeah, I have taken that one off for now. But yeah, this is one of the things where I'd recommend just not getting unless you know how to actually use it. It's very expensive and it's just out of the way. So I believe that's actually all the nodes that we have on the main island, or just like the main area. Now, what we're going to talk about one more time before we head out is down in the new region. So everyone knows the new region, the land of the morning light, the newest thing. What do I have connected? All right, so let's break this off into left, medium, and right. The left side being the Moodle village, middle being in the Daybol village, and the right side being in the county. So the only thing I have on the village left side is the Trace of Memory node, which is kind of a long one, just because Trace of Memory is very important. And on the middle side, we have connected these two over here, which are excavations. So Trace of Earth, Forest Crystals, and Embers, always definitely something worth getting. And then Harmony Crystals. I think a lot of these nodes in the new region are more for like mid to end game players because you know how to actually use them. But having traces are always good and I think worth your time. And good thing to note is every node in here is 1 contribution point, so it's cheap. It's just knowing how to use it and turning all of these into profit is probably the bigger important thing. And especially because it's new, it gives those crystals that you could turn into like gear stats and everything. So they're good to have. It's just if you're a beginner, I would just probably pick some other things that you can sell easily. And then another one for excavation down here for trace of savagery and mysterious powders. It's for cooking. And down in the county, I believe I have one, maybe two connected, and then two more up here. And then this one. Well, either way, they're going to one of these two nodes. So over here, we have pine timber and pine sap. That's a usual trend that we have shown you for basically all my other nodes. More pine timber and pine sap. That's basically where it goes. And I actually use them. So this one is a special node that I would probably recommend skipping for most people unless you are into sailing and bartering. So this node allows you to craft a new ship gear for the new one that came out with the region. And so if you want to collect the things, you probably need to get it anyway, so might as well just put the node on. But aside from that, it's a very time-consuming node, and this one's like, what, 12 hours a cycle? Like, it's kind of a lot, actually, so not sure if worth, but you kind of need it if you plan on making the new boat, and that's an entire new topic. Is it worth it for the Carrack versus the new boat? I have a video on it. Go watch it if you care. And then two nodes over here for maple, timber, sap, and old tree bark. Timbers and saps, the usual. And the crystal of decimation and trace of earth. Those are the two important ones. And yeah, that's kind of what we have going on over here in this nodes. Mysterious powder, if you don't know what it's used for, it's mostly used for various cooking. I think, or, well, I guess it tells you like cooking and alchemy, I believe, or more alchemy. One of those two, either way. Something worth noting. And yeah, over here we just have more saps going in, and then here we have thing for a trace of memory, and that's it. So yeah, that's about all the nodes that I have. And once again, I would recommend you guys picking up nodes that you think you need yourself. You could copy me if you wanted to. Like, the nodes I have are pretty decent value in terms of, like, if you were to just get the materials and sell them straight to the market, I think those are some of the higher tier ones in terms of like profit. However, a lot of the nodes I have as well, like the ones in Valencia and stuff, that I think are something you should probably use instead of selling it to the market instead, and you'll probably make more. I wish I could give you more information on what you could cook to profit, but that's kind of like very complicated, and some of it is like, well, I guess people like to keep it a secret. And there's like websites where you can look that do calculators that say, hey, you could make X amount of profit doing this one. So I'd recommend looking it up. And if you find a secret thing to cook for profit, just keep it to yourself. Just if you want to keep making profit. But those are all the nodes I have. And hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, leave it in the comments and all that stuff, or join the Discord and everything. So before we head out, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel here, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you come back. I make videos for new players, returning players, and people who are just looking to get better at the game. And as well as for the month of July and a little bit of August, I do have an affiliate code for A-coins and the game packages, so you guys can see that on screen. So if you use code Jonlaw, and you spend money on A-coins or pearls, or you're just thinking about buying the game or packages like the upgrade edition, and you use my code, I get a little bit of that, however much you spent on it, and I would really appreciate it. So once again, if you use that, I do appreciate it. And even if you don't spend any money on this game, that's cool too. I just hope these videos are educational and hope you guys learn something and you're just having fun overall. So yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic day, and peace.